Hi guys, it's Izzy, and in today's video I'm going to be recommending my favourite audiobooks, ones I've listened to and I think are the best ones. Now, I use audiobooks a lot. I suffer from migraines, which means there are like long periods of time where I can't read, so I rely really heavily on audiobooks then. And I also just have chronic fatigue and chronic illness, so a lot of the time I'm just too tired to read, and then I use audiobooks as well. So I've listened to a lot of audiobooks, so I feel like I'm, like a professional at audiobooks. So if there's anyone who can tell you which audiobooks are best, it's me. Now obviously these are all books I like, because I wouldn't recommend you listen to books that I don't think are good. So you probably may have heard me speak about some of these books before, just in a general capacity about how much I love them, but I've tried to vary up so they're not like all the same recommendations I always give you, and they are books that I genuinely think are equally as good as an audiobook, or even better as an audiobook than as a physical book. So yeah. The first, and I think maybe the best audiobook, I may be slightly biased, and really I think I need to, like, people have swear jars. I need to pay into a jar every time I talk about the Diviners because it's a problem. Like, I literally need to find myself for the amount I talk about this darn book. But it's a great audiobook. I read this series originally physically, and then I've reread it twice via audiobooks, and they are fantastic. So this is The Diviners by Libba Bray. This is a historical fiction fantasy series set in the 1920s in New York, and we follow a bunch of teenagers who all have diviner type powers. They can walk in dreams, they can heal, they can read objects, etc. And basically they have to like face down evil. So yay, it's my favourite series of all time. Yeah, we know, Izzy, you've talked about it. But the audiobook is fantastic. It's narrated by January Lavoie, and she is absolutely brilliant at what she does. She is just so good. There's so many characters in this, and even though she's just one person, it's so easy to distinguish between the characters. She does such a good job at just changing the tone slightly. None of her voices were annoying in any way. I feel sometimes when narrators try and change their voices, it can get a bit annoying because they're like trying too hard to make it sound different, so that it kind of just sounds irritating, and that wasn't the case with any of the voices that she did in the audiobooks. And the audiobooks there's 4 books in the series now, and it's completed, so binge it, and every single audiobook is just fantastic. I actually haven't listened to the 4th one, but I've listened to 3 of them twice, so I'm pretty sure that the 4th one still holds up. But yeah, this is a fantastic audiobook. Even aside from my love for the series, just as an audiobook, it's just fantastic. The next audiobook is the audiobook for the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series by Jenny Han. These are all narrated by Laura Knight Keating, and again, they're fantastic. This is a series that follows Lara Jean, who writes letters when she has finished having a crush on a boy. She writes them, puts them in a hat box, is done with her feelings, and then one day these letters get sent out, who knows how, and she ends up having to fake date one of the boys in order to save face in front of another boy that also got a letter. And this series is just so charming and delightful, and the narration is so good. Like, the way she does, the 2 main characters are Lara Jean and Peter Kavinsky, the love interest, and she does both of them so well, and she really brought Lara Jean to life for me. Again, I read this physically first, but then reread via audiobook, and it gave Lara Jean so much character just through her voice. Like, it really made her come alive for me. Even before the movies, I felt like I could see her and I knew her just from the voice that Laura Knight Keating did. So if you haven't picked up this series yet, then I would highly recommend picking it up. However, but I would really recommend the audiobook. It's also a very like soothing and calming audiobook, so if you're looking for something kind of light and kind of calming, then it's also a really great book, and her voice is just generally very soothing, but also full of character. So yes, I loved these audiobooks very much. The next book I'm going to talk about is actually one of my favourite books, but a book I don't really talk about on here because I read it quite a few years ago, and that is The Martian by Andy Weir. I love this book. This is a sci-fi book that is set on Mars, and our main character, what's his name, Mark Watney, he goes on a mission to Mars, and the rest of the team have to evacuate because there's like this storm and they think he's dead, but he's not dead, and therefore he has to survive on Mars for a good long while. It's super sciencey, super cool, and the audiobook for this is absolutely brilliant. The narration is done by R.C. Bray, and honestly I'm going to say most of the same things because all these audiobooks are great and there's really only so much you can say about narration. But again, the same with Lara Jean is I really felt this character come alive when listening to the audiobook. Again, I read this physically first and then I re-listened to it on audio, and it's just a audiobook I keep coming back to because it really pulls you in and it kind of like mesmerizes you because you're so like attached to this character and it feels so real and you feel so invested. And I just think the narration for this was fabulous, and I also think it made the more sciencey parts easier to digest personally, and yeah, it's brilliant. Then another more popular book is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Do you like my special edition? I love it. And this is a full cast narration audiobook, which is super cool because we have 6 main characters in this book and they all kind of have chapters that are like centering around their POV, and also they just talk all the time, and so it was super cool to have a full cast narration because it gave the characters so much life, and it really was great to be able to so clearly distinguish between the characters, and it felt like you were kind of watching a movie because like there were all these voices that really like made the characters and the situation feel so much more real. I'm just going to read out all the narrators because there's a bunch of them. Jay Snyder, Brandon Rubin, Fred Berman, Lauren Fortgang, Roger Clark, Elizabeth Evans and Tristan Morris. They do the audio. And in case you don't know, this is about a group of 6 characters who try and pull off the biggest heist there is. Everyone thinks it's impossible, they don't, and so they try and do it. It's one of my favourite series of all time, and this is a duology, both Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, the second book, are done by full cast narration and are both amazing. The next book I'm going to talk about is one of my all-time favourite books as well, and that is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. This is a middle grade series that follows our main character Morrigan Crow, and because of when she was born on her 11th birthday, I think it's her 11th birthday? Yes, her 11th birthday, she is supposed to die, and then just before that happens she gets whisked away by an eccentric mentor called Jupiter North, and she is whisked away to the magical world of Nevermore where she has to compete in trials to become part of the Wonder Society, which is like the coolest thing you can be in Nevermore. This series is middle grade, it's absolutely fantastic, I love it anyway, but the audiobooks are fantastic for this. The narration is done by Gemma Whelan, and the book just really comes alive with the narration. It does also have like cute little sound effects when it changes chapters as well, which just adds to the whimsy of it, and she does such a great job at again giving each character their own certain voice. And I've listened to these audiobooks, this for Nevermore and also the second book Wondersmith. Again, I read them both physically first and then re-listened to them on audiobook, and they're another book that's really soothing that I listen to at night, and she does such a beautiful narration where she just kind of really gets it right in the middle. It's not too much, it's not too little, and it's just a really fantastic audiobook that's also very soothing and makes it feel even more magical than it was before, which was pretty magical, so that's a real feat. The next series I have to talk about is another full cast narration, and that is Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. This is a trilogy. I don't recommend you read the third book because it sucks, but the first 2 books are really cool. It's a sci-fi series where this girl, when she was like 10 or something, was riding her bike and then she fell into a giant blue robot hand, and then we flash forward to her as an adult and she has become a scientist and is basically putting this like research team team together to try and find the other parts to this robot and like find out its origin, etc, etc. And it's a super cool sci-fi series, but what I think makes it such a good audiobook is this book is written as a mixed media story, but it's told either in interviews, like spoken diary entries, or just like conversations and dialogue. So there is no prose in this book, it is all dialogue or like in a narration, and so it seems like it should be an audiobook because it's all dialogue and it's all talking, and so it makes sense for it to be an audiobook. So I think this is one of the books that actually I would recommend reading as an audiobook. I didn't read them physically, I've only listened to the audiobooks, but they just fit so well because they are all dialogue. It just makes sense for them to be in audiobooks, and they just were really, really engaging. And again, it was a full cast narration, so I'll just read out all the names. The narrators are Adna Sabalic, Andy Seacombe, Charlie Amson, Christopher Ragland, Eric Myers, Catherine Mangold, Laurel Lefkow, Liza Ross and William Hope. There's a lot of them. The next one I'm going to recommend is one I've actually just finished recently, and that is Black Girl Unlimited by Echo Smith. This only came out very recently, and so I've only listened to the audiobook, and this is a mostly autobiographical book that follows Echo's her life, and it's partial magical realism and her life, and I think the magical realism just really helped to kind of tell the story, and it was just an absolutely beautiful book. I recommend everyone pick it up, whether it's on audiobook or not. But Echo Smith actually narrates the audiobook, and because it's her life and she's written the book, she tells it in such a beautiful way because she knows exactly how she wanted it to sound. So it sounds perfect because she's written it and then she's read it out loud, and so it sounds like her vision really came to life. And I think it really helped me visualize the book and connect to it more, because it really felt like she was kind of giving her passion and her real life into this story, and it just had much more of an impact on me audio wise, I think, than it would have if I had just read it. So again, this is a book I would actually suggest ingesting as an audiobook, and yeah, it's just a stunning book, but I think the audiobook was extra special. Then I want to recommend I Will Always Write Back. This is a autobiographical book about two teenagers who become pen pals because of a school like pen pal exchange thing, and we have Caitlin who lives in America and Martin who lives in Africa somewhere, I can't quite remember where he's from, but they become pen pals, and like everyone else in their class kind of after a few months fizzles out with their pen pals and don't keep up with them, but Martin and Caitlin become like best friends. And this book has like a mix of both their letters to each other and like prose like about their life. I think it was another book that really benefited from being an audiobook, because like having the letters read out to you and having them also tell the story of their life, I think really brought the story off the page and made me connect with it more, because it really felt like I was kind of just seeing this friendship unfold and like hearing their like love for each other and like their friendship for each other, and it was just really, really beautiful. And the narration was done by Chukwudi Iwuji. I absolutely butchered that, I know that for sure, and also Emily Bauer, I think. I'm not very good with names. Another recommendation that I think everyone knows by now, but that is Becoming by Michelle Obama. This is Michelle Obama's autobiography, and she narrates the audiobook, and it just felt like she was sitting down and telling me her entire life story, like we were friends, and like she was just like telling me her life, and it felt like a very personal experience, and like not even like this was a book, but like she was just telling me, and it felt like a very intimate and beautiful way for the story to be told. And I think it felt really real and authentic, which obviously it's her life, but I think the audio narration really helped to make it seem all the more authentic and touching. I think is stunning. Another audiobook that I think is brilliant, and also I just love this book, is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I listened to all 3 books that are out currently on audio, and they were all brilliant. And this is a series that follows a like martial empire fantasy universe. We follow Laia, who at the beginning witnesses her family being killed and her brother being taken as a hostage because he has been doing rebellion things. And Laia, after witnessing these events, decides to try and rescue her brother, so she becomes a slave to one of the most terrifying people in this world, the Commandant, and she wants to try and get information about her brother. And then we also follow Elias, who is the son of the Commandant, and he is training to be a soldier for the Martial Empire. But then as he meets Laia and kind of learns more about everything, he realises that maybe that's not what he wants to do with his life, but he doesn't really see a way out. And so this is told in 2 perspectives. So we have 2 narrations for this, which is really great, and they are Ayala Carla and Jack Farrar, I think. Ayala is one of my favourite narrators. She narrates Alice Oseman's books as well, and they're brilliant too, and she does quite a lot of audiobook narration, and she's definitely one of my favourites. She does such a good job with every book she does, and yeah, this was really great. It worked really well having 2 narrators to do both Elias's and Laia's parts, and it just was a really engaging audiobook. And the story itself is engaging, but I think the audiobook was just kind of like addictive. Like I didn't want to stop listening. I just wanted to keep listening because I was so like in the world. Like I just felt transported. It was great. And the final 2 books I'm going to talk about, one being The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken, and this was narrated by Amy McFadden. This is a dystopian that's pretty old, but I read, I believe, in 2018. I just listened to the audiobooks, and it's a dystopian thing where teenagers have like superpowers, but they're kept in these camps so that they can be controlled and stuff. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's a really cool book, it's a trilogy, which I really think holds up to time. It's not like an incredible work of fiction, but it's definitely not like, for instance, Divergent, which I tried to reread and it was just terrible. I read it for the first time in 2018 and I genuinely enjoyed myself, and I didn't think it had aged badly at all. I thought it had actually aged really well, and yeah, the audiobook was just really great. The narrator gave our main character Ruby a lot of character. She felt a lot more real and vibrant via the audiobook, and I think it helped me connect to the book more because I kind of really felt connected to Ruby, and it was just like a really well done audiobook. That's all I have to say on it. And the final audiobook is Lovely War by Julie Berry, and this is a historical fiction novel that follows 2 events. One is a Greek god trial. Aphrodite is caught cheating on her husband Hephaestus, and she is on trial, and she says, while I'm here, let me tell you the 2 like greatest love stories I've like witnessed. And so then we follow 2 couples in World War I who are just trying to survive and fall in love, and it's just a really beautiful story. I've raved about it. It's so good. But this again is a full cast narration and just really made the story so real and so like, again, kind of like I was watching a movie, because it felt so real and it was just so atmospheric and it was just done incredibly well. The narrators were Jane Entwistle, Alan Corduna, Julie Berry, Dion Graham, Fiona Hardingham, John Lee, Nathaniel Parker and Steve West. So there were quite a lot of them, and it was just a really brilliant audiobook. What more do I have to say? They were all great. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and you got some recommendations. I really rely on audiobooks and I'm so glad there are so many available and so many fantastic ones. And yeah, I hope you got some recommendations out of this video and that you try some of these out, and I think you're gonna love them because they are truly the best of the best, because I've listened to a lot of audiobooks in my time and these are the cream of the crop, so I would highly recommend listening to them. But yes, it's continually getting darker. It looks like I'm filming this at like 11 o'clock at night. It's literally 10 o'clock in the morning, but you know. But yes, thank you so much for watching. I'm really close to 400 subscribers, which is absolutely crazy. So if by the time this has gone up, I've reached 400 subscribers, my mind will be blown. I love you all so much. Even if I'm not at 400 subscribers, you're all the absolute best. I'm so thankful for each and every one of your support, and yeah, I'm just so blessed to have so many lovely people who have decided to subscribe to me. If you want to stick around, subscribe to me, ring the bell. I don't know, I've never done that, but people say it, so I'm gonna say it. Follow me on Twitter, be my friend on Goodreads. I write full reviews on there this year, so I'm really doing the most on Goodreads. And yeah, if you have any video requests, let me know. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in my next one. Bye!